we've heard, but I would like to focus on what it means to parents and children and to freedom of speech and religion. As drafted, and before the army of amendments surely coming its way, it would become a criminal offence for parents to discuss gender issues with their children. Given that parents will only have their child's best interest at heart, there is clearly no harmful intent. Yet as drafted, the bill assumes there is only harmful intent. But, my lords, it gets worse, because not only is it proposed to ban spoken free speech, but also silent free speech in the form of prayers. Thus we have a new crime, prayer crime. Ban conversion therapy's founders say a ban must cover gentle, non-coercive prayer, before going on to confirm that prayer has a pernicious power. And how are these private family conversations discovered anyway? Possibly because a child tells a classmate or teacher. What then of the teacher? Is he or she committing a crime by not reporting the parents to the police? And if she or he does report the parents to the police, and the police arrest the parents and they now have a criminal record, what does that do to future family relationships?
Hello and welcome to The Faith Report, bringing you daily videos on those Christian news bites you won't find in mainstream media. Today we're going to take a deep dive into a fascinating free speech controversy that's been unfolding in UK Parliament. It revolves around a heated debate over potentially banning what's known as conversion therapy across Britain. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Conversion therapy, that's just some niche culture war issue. Why should I care about that? But stick with me, because as you'll see here, the implications could be far-reaching, especially for Christians and anyone concerned about protecting basic civil liberties. This is one of those situations that starts out targeting a very specific practice that many find unethical or even abusive, but then the remedies being proposed could open up a huge can of worms that could threaten all sorts of previously protected speech and religious rights down the line. So it's absolutely worth understanding what's at stake here. So let's lay out exactly what's gone down in UK Parliament around the issue. In late January 2024, a new bill was introduced that would ban the practice of conversion therapy across the UK. Now, conversion therapy refers to any counselling, teaching or practices aimed at changing someone's sexual orientation from gay to straight or suppressing transgender identity. The ban will make it illegal and punishable by fines. Specifically, the bill prohibits any practice aimed at a person or group which demonstrates an assumption that any sexual orientation or gender identity is preferable to another, and which has the intended purpose of attempting to change or suppress a person's orientation or identity. When this bill came up for debate in the House of Lords in mid-February, things got incredibly heated and contentious. In what was described as a historic first by the Christian advocacy group Christian Concern, more politicians in Parliament spoke out opposing the conversion therapy ban than supporting it. 29 members of the House of Lords, including 15 Conservatives, 3 Labour members, a Liberal Democrat, several non-affiliated peers, and even a Church of England bishop, all voiced serious concerns or outright opposing the proposed ban. In contrast, just 15 members spoke in favour, including Labour and Lib Dem politicians, as well as another Church of England bishop on the opposite side. This was the first time a conversion therapy ban had ever faced more opposition than support in any parliamentary debate globally. So it was a very significant development. So why were there so many objections aired to this proposed law? The main concern from Christian Concern and others is that the wording of the bill is incredibly vague and overreaching. While it's clearly taking aim at unethical and sometimes torturous practices aimed at forcibly changing people's identities without consent, critics argue that the language goes way beyond just that narrow scope. As the Christian Concern briefing lays out, the bill's definition around demonstrating an assumption about preferring certain orientation over others and around suppressing expression of orientation or identities could arguably criminalise all sorts of previously protected speech and religious practices. Things like parents having conversations with their own children about traditional biblical perspectives on sexuality and gender, churches teaching that heterosexuality and traditional gender identities are preferable based on religious doctrine, self-help groups where people voluntarily explore and discuss sexuality and gender issues, casual advice between friends for someone to remain celibate until marriage, refusing to allow a child to cross-dress against their wishes. The main concern is that any of these kinds of conversations, advice or practices which involve affirming certain orientations over others or limiting how identities can be expressed could potentially be deemed as illegal conversion therapy under this new law. Essentially, critics argue that this is a severe violation of basic civil liberties, freedom of speech, parental rights and freedom of religious exercise around traditional beliefs on sexuality. In the debate, the Bishop of Manchester gave a particularly compelling speech warning that the commonplace religious premises around sex and marriage could become de facto illegalities under such broad law. You're up to date, keep the faith and God willing I will see you tomorrow.